Why was the sling such a lethal weapon in antiquity? The answer lies in a perfect combination of simplicity, economy, and, above all, mastery, often relegated to the background in historical narratives. Overshadowed by the glamour of the sword or the precision of the bow, the sling was, for centuries, a war instrument capable of deciding the fate of battles and empires. Its apparent simplicity is deceiving. A simple strip of leather or fabric, a carefully selected projectile, and a trained arm could unleash a destructive force capable of piercing armor and sowing chaos among enemy ranks. To understand its lethality, we must delve into the physics of its mechanics and the relentless dedication of those who mastered it. History is often told from the perspective of the victors or through the lens of those who left written records. This has led to crucial aspects of ancient warfare, such as the fundamental role of slingers, being relegated to footnotes. While popular culture, fueled by literature and film, glorifies archers, depicting them as figures of lethal precision and individual bravery, the reality is that slingers were the true rulers of ranged combat until the advent of firearms. An archer required a complex weapon, crafted from costly materials through a demanding manufacturing process. Their training, though crucial, was limited by the very nature of the bow. The slinger, on the other hand, relied on pure skill, controlled brute force, and a deep understanding of instinctive ballistics. The sling was a democratic weapon, accessible to all, but mastering it required discipline and constant practice that few were willing to undertake. This accessibility and ubiquity paradoxically contributed to its undervaluation in historical records. Slingers were often considered auxiliaries, mere complements to legions, overlooking the fact that, in many cases, they were the ones who softened the enemy, prepared the battlefield, and ultimately tipped the scales of victory. History has favored the archer, but archaeological evidence and scattered testimonies reveal the true supremacy of the slinger in ancient warfare. Within the world of slingers, one culture in particular stood out with unparalleled mastery: the Balearic Slingers. From childhood, the inhabitants of the Balearic Islands were trained in the art of the sling, becoming the most sought-after and feared mercenaries in the Mediterranean. Their reputation was legendary. Strabo, the Greek geographer, recounts that Balearic mothers would not allow their children to eat until they had successfully hit a target with a sling. This anecdote, beyond its literal interpretation, reflects the central importance of the sling in Balearic culture. Constant training, rigorous selection of projectiles, stones of different sizes and weights for various ranges and effects, and the development of innovative throwing techniques allowed them to achieve devastating precision and power on the battlefield. Their skill was not limited to accuracy. The force with which they hurled stones was such that, according to reports, they could pierce shields, break armor, and even kill a man with a single strike. Polybius, the Greek historian, described the impact of stones launched by Balearic slingers as more dangerous than arrows. This ability to inflict damage, combined with their mobility and knowledge of the terrain, made them an invaluable asset to any army. From the Punic Wars against Rome to conflicts among Greek city-states, the Balearic slingers fought on the front lines, demonstrating time and again their exceptional mastery of the sling and leaving an indelible mark on ancient military history. Their legacy, though often ignored, deserves to be remembered as a testament to the power of skill, discipline, and dedication in the pursuit of mastery in the art of war. Who were the original inhabitants of the Balearic Islands? The salty breeze caresses the shores of Majorca, Menorca, Ibiza, and Formentera, an archipelago bathed by the Mediterranean, which for millennia has witnessed the ebb and flow of cultures, empires, and civilizations. But long before the Phoenicians, Romans, or Arabs, who were the first to set foot on these lands? Where did they come from, and how did they live? Ancient chronicles, oral traditions passed down through generations, and dusty parchment manuscripts speak of a primitive, almost savage people who inhabited the caves of the islands. They were described as men and women who walked naked, covered only by animal skins, living off hunting and gathering. Myths and legends wove fantastic tales about their origins, sometimes associating them with mythical creatures or survivors of distant shipwrecks. However, archaeology, with its meticulous excavations and scientific analyses, offers us a far more precise and complex vision of the development of these early Balearic communities, a vision that challenges simplifications and reveals the richness of their material culture and social organization. The history of the Balearic Islands begins much earlier than we might imagine. The earliest evidence of human presence on the islands dates back to the Upper Paleolithic, more than 8,500 years ago. These first settlers, probably coming from the Iberian Peninsula, arrived in small rudimentary boats, drawn by the rich marine life and natural resources of the islands. Their lives were nomadic, following animal migrations and adapting to seasonal changes. The caves were more than just shelters. They were vital centers of their existence, serving as homes, storage areas, ritual sites, and burial grounds. Within these caves, archaeologists have discovered stone tools, the bones of hunted animals, and cave paintings that provide insight into their beliefs and relationship with their environment. Over millennia, these communities underwent profound transformations. The Neolithic era introduced agriculture and animal husbandry, marking the beginning of a more sedentary lifestyle. Crops such as wheat and barley were cultivated, and animals like sheep, goats, and pigs were domesticated. The first settlements emerged, scattered villages made up of small stone and mud huts. Pottery became an essential part of daily life, allowing for food storage and cooking. Metallurgy, introduced during the Bronze Age, revolutionized their technology and social organization. Bronze was used to craft weapons, tools, and ornaments, stimulating trade and labor specialization. During the Iron Age, the Balearic Islands experienced a period of great cultural flourishing. The taliots, imposing stone structures, began to dominate the landscape. These defensive towers, often part of larger architectural complexes, served as centers of power and territorial control. The taliots are a testament to the complexity of Balearic society at the time, a hierarchical society organized around clans or tribes. The taliotic sanctuaries, sacred sites where rituals and offerings to the gods were performed, reveal the depth of their religious beliefs. Funerary goods found in taliotic necropolises, with their bronze ornaments and ceramics, speak of their wealth and cultural sophistication. But it was their skill with the sling that truly distinguished the Balearic people in the ancient world. From childhood, boys were trained in the use of this weapon, becoming fearsome warriors and highly sought-after mercenaries. Contemporary chronicles tell us that Balearic mothers would not feed their children until they had successfully knocked down a piece of bread with their sling. Their precision and power were such that they could strike birds in flight or penetrate enemy armor. The Balearic Slingers were recruited by the armies of the Phoenicians, Carthaginians, and Romans, taking part in the most important wars of the era. Their reputation as invincible warriors became etched in history, far from the simplistic image of naked savages. The first inhabitants of the Balearic Islands were complex and dynamic communities that evolved over the centuries. They adapted to their environment, developed a rich and original culture, and became skilled warriors and mercenaries. Their history, carved into the stones of the taliots and recorded in ancient chronicles, is a legacy that deserves recognition and appreciation. The Balearic Islands are not merely a vacation paradise, but also an archaeological treasure that reveals the deep roots of our civilization. How could a simple core with a pouch launch projectiles with such force, inflicting devastating wounds at astonishing distances? The answer lies in the combination of ingenious design, exhaustive training, and a refined shooting technique honed over generations, transforming an apparently rudimentary tool into a weapon capable of altering the course of battles. The sling, in essence, was an instrument of deceptive simplicity. Made from durable plant fibers, tan leather, or even animal hair, it consisted of a central cord expanded into a pouch to hold a projectile. This seemingly humble structure was capable of generating immense kinetic force. The design, adapted over time by the inhabitants of the Balearic Islands, allowed projectiles to reach speeds exceeding 100 kilometers per hour through precise rotational motion. Imagine the impact of a stone traveling at that speed, capable of piercing light armor and causing severe bone fractures. But speed was only one part of the equation. The range was equally impressive. The Balearic Slingers, masters of the art of throwing, could hit targets up to 400 meters away, a distance significantly greater than that reached by most archers of the time. This ability to strike from afar made slingers a constant disruptive force on the battlefield, forcing enemy formations to scatter and exposing them to further attacks. The combination of speed, range, and precision transformed the sling into a lethal weapon in the hands of the Balearic warriors. But the effectiveness of the sling was not limited to its design and range. The Balearic Slingers, far from settling for a single type of ammunition, developed a variety of projectiles adapted to different tactical situations and specific targets. Stone, easily accessible and low cost, was the most common type of ammunition. However, slingers did not simply pick up any rock they found. They carefully selected smooth, rounded stones, calibrated to ensure precise flight and maximum impact. For shorter-range combat or to inflict more brutal injuries, they used hardened clay projectiles. Though less dense than stone, these projectiles were easier to manufacture and could be mass-produced. However, the most feared ammunition, and perhaps the one that best exemplifies the sophistication of the slinger's craft, were the lead projectiles, cast and molded into aerodynamic shapes. These projectiles were considerably heavier and denser than stone or clay. Their impact was devastating, easily piercing shields and armor. But what truly terrified enemies were the inscriptions engraved on these lead projectiles. Names of gods, insults, or even curses were carved on their surfaces, intended to sow fear and superstition among enemy ranks. Imagine the terror of a soldier struck by a lead projectile inscribed with his name or a reference to a vengeful deity. Beyond the physical damage, the psychological impact of these inscribed projectiles was undeniable, demoralizing the enemy and creating an atmosphere of uncertainty and dread. The sling, therefore, was not just a weapon. It was a tool of psychological warfare, a symbol of the power and ferocity of the Balearic Slingers. How were these elite warriors forged, their names echoing with fear across the battlefields of antiquity? From Rome to Carthage, the training of the Balearic Slingers was not merely military instruction. It was a rite of passage, a way of life ingrained into their identity from the earliest childhood. Ancient accounts, passed down through the centuries by authors such as Diodorus, Siculus, and Strabo, paint a stark and almost unbelievable picture of the discipline that governed the childhood of these young warriors. The legend, perhaps embellished over time but no less revealing, tells us that Balearic children were denied food by their own mothers until they proved their skill with the sling. This was not a mere whim but a harsh requirement that fostered precision and dexterity at an age when other children were just learning to walk. Imagine the hunger, the initial frustration, the primal motivation to master the sling. It was a relentless way to ensure that survival depended on skill, accuracy, and the intimate connection between the warrior and his weapon. This severe restriction, though it may seem cruel through modern eyes, was the first step in the forging of a slinger, a symbolic act that defined his place in society. Hunger, therefore, became the first teacher, a constant spur to improvement. The sling was not just a projectile weapon. It was an extension of the body, a vital appendage. Training began with small stones thrown at nearby targets. Over time, as the child grew and his strength increased, the stones became larger and the targets farther and more difficult. Practice was not limited to sunny days and flat terrain. Training took place in the rain, against the wind, on rugged and uneven ground. They were taught to calculate the trajectory of the projectile, to account for wind strength, distance, elevation, and the movement of the target. It was not just about brute force, but about a deep understanding of the physics of the throw, an intuition developed through constant repetition and meticulous observation. Hunting was an integral part of their training. Young slingers participated in the hunting of small animals, such as rabbits and birds, refining their aim and learning to move stealthily across the terrain. This practice not only provided them with food, but also taught them tracking skills, ambush tactics, and environmental adaptability. Hunting became a combat simulation, a constant preparation for the challenges they would face on the battlefield. Beyond individual practice, slingers also trained in groups, simulating real combat situations. They faced off in throwing competitions, testing their precision and speed. These drills taught them teamwork, coordination, and mutual support. They also instilled a competitive spirit, a desire to surpass themselves and their peers. Discipline was fundamental. They were taught to obey orders without question, to remain calm under pressure, and to endure pain and hardship. Physical endurance was as important as skill with the sling. They underwent long marches, grueling training sessions, and deprivations designed to strengthen both body and mind. Through this relentless, multidisciplinary practice, the slingers developed formidable skill. Their accuracy was legendary, their speed astonishing, their endurance enviable. They could hurl stones with such force and precision that they could penetrate armor and kill a man from great distances. Their reputation spread across the Mediterranean, making them highly sought-after mercenaries for armies such as the Carthaginian and, later, the Roman. They were not mere stone throwers. They were elite warriors, the product of rigorous training and inflexible discipline, a force to be reckoned with on any battlefield. Their story is a testament to humanity's ability to develop extraordinary skills through dedication, perseverance, and a deep connection with the tools that define their craft. The Balearic Slingers did not just hurl stones. They hurled the history of a people forged through hardship and discipline. The answer lies in a unique combination of factors: lethal precision, superior range, and an astonishing logistical efficiency for the time. In a world where war was fought in close combat or with short-range bows and javelins, the Balearic Slingers stood out as human artillery, capable of unleashing a barrage of devastating projectiles at distances unimaginable to most warriors. They were not merely stone throwers. They were highly trained specialists in a deadly art, forged on the Balearic Islands over generations. Their reputation, spread across the Mediterranean, made them highly sought-after mercenaries, a shock force capable of tipping the scales in decisive battles. Since time immemorial, the inhabitants of the Balearic Islands, primarily Majorca and Menorca, had cultivated the art of the sling out of necessity for hunting and defense. The island's rugged and rocky geography favored the development of this skill. Far from being just a pastime, mastering the sling became a rigorous discipline, passed down from father to son from early childhood. They mastered different throwing techniques, each adapted to a specific distance and target. From the low-angle throw, ideal for causing casualties in the enemy's front lines, to the parabolic shot, designed to bypass defenses and strike rear formations. The quality of their training translated into astonishing effectiveness on the battlefield. The Balearic Slingers could not only achieve remarkable distances, but also hit their targets with incredible accuracy. It is said that they could strike a bird in flight or pierce a warrior's shield from dozens of meters away. This lethal precision made them particularly effective against light infantry and cavalry, sowing chaos and disorganization among enemy ranks before the main clash. Additionally, the psychological effect of a relentless shower of stones was considerable, demoralizing soldiers and weakening their resolve. From the Carthaginian armies to the Roman legions, the Balearic Slingers played a crucial role in decisive battles, intervening masterfully in conflicts that shaped the course of Mediterranean history. Their reputation as elite mercenaries attracted the attention of numerous military leaders seeking a tactical advantage on the battlefield. Their presence was not merely symbolic. They were an essential component of the war machines of ancient civilizations. The first evidence of their involvement in warfare dates back to the Punic Wars, where they served in the ranks of the Carthaginian army. Their skill and bravery deeply impressed Carthaginian generals, who regularly incorporated them into their expeditionary forces. They were not mere auxiliaries. They were an integral part of military strategy, acting as long-range shock troops and providing fundamental support to heavy infantry. Hannibal made extensive use of them in his campaigns against Rome, and they proved essential in victories, such as the Battle of Lake Trasimene and Cannae. The Carthaginian general, renowned for his tactical genius and ability to innovate in warfare, quickly understood the potential of the Balearic Slingers. He systematically integrated them into his army, deploying them in key positions throughout his campaigns in Italy. At the Battle of Lake Trasimene, 217 BCE, Hannibal's masterfully planned ambush was greatly facilitated by the presence of the Balearic Slingers. Hidden in the morning mist, They unleashed a deadly hail of projectiles upon the unsuspecting Roman legions marching along the lake shore. The surprise attack, combined with the natural geography, turned the battle into a massacre, and the Balearic Slingers played a significant role in the Carthaginian victory. At Cannae, 216 BCE, considered one of the most brilliant military victories in history, the Balearic Slingers played a crucial role in encircling the Roman forces. Deployed on the flanks of the Carthaginian army, their precise and relentless fire disrupted the Roman legions, facilitating the maneuver of the Numidian cavalry that completed the encirclement. The Battle of Cannae became a symbol of Carthaginian military prowess and a testament to the effectiveness of the Balearic Slingers as a combat force. The participation of the Balearic Slingers in the Punic Wars, especially under Hannibal's command, demonstrated their strategic value and their ability to influence the outcomes of battles. Their legacy endured through the centuries, solidifying their reputation as the best slingers of the ancient world and ensuring their continued presence in the armies of various civilizations striving for victory on the battlefield. Their story is a testament to the power of skill, discipline, and dedication in the art of war. The question echoes through the centuries, a persistent reminder of the Balearic Islands, an archipelago where an ancestral skill transformed its inhabitants into feared and respected warriors. It was not just about the sling, that simple implement made of braided fibers or leather, but about a profound understanding of physics, a dedication to training, and a culture that elevated its use into a form of martial art. The Balearic Slingers were not mere stone throwers. They were a shock force, a disruptive element capable of altering the course of battles and shaping the fate of empires. Their legacy is not measured solely by enemy casualties, but by the strategic recognition they gained and the way ancient infantry redefined their tactics to counter their deadly reach. In the ancient Mediterranean, where legions and phalanxes clashed in brutal engagements of steel against steel, the Balearic Slingers posed a different kind of threat, one that struck from a distance with astonishing precision. The sling was not just a weapon. It was an integral part of their identity, passed down through generations with rigorous training. This dedication translated into devastating battlefield results. Their effectiveness lay not only in the power of their throws, but also in their ability to unleash synchronized volleys, creating a constant rain of projectiles that demoralized and decimated enemy formations. Historical chronicles attest to their influence. The Carthaginians, in their struggle against Rome, highly valued the Balearic Slingers as mercenaries. Later, Rome, learning from its mistakes, also recruited Balearic Slingers into its own legions. They recognized their effectiveness and understood that the best way to neutralize their threat was to incorporate them into their ranks. The Balearic Slingers served with distinction in the Roman army, participating in campaigns across the empire, from Hispania to Britannia. Their presence in the Roman legions not only enhanced their long-range capabilities, but also served as a tacit acknowledgement of their superiority in the art of the sling. However, over time, the role of the sling in warfare declined. The development of more powerful projectile weapons, such as the crossbow and later, firearms, relegated the sling to a secondary role. The ability of these new weapons to launch projectiles over greater distances and with more force far surpassed the capabilities of the sling, even in the hands of the most skilled slingers. Heavier armor, capable of withstanding sling impacts, also contributed to its obsolescence. As the use of the sling faded, its impact on warfare was replaced by these new long-range weapons. The crossbow, with its ability to penetrate armor and its greater range, became the preferred weapon for ranged combat. Firearms, with their unmatched destructive power, ultimately sealed the fate of the sling as a military weapon. The Balearic Slingers, once a feared force in the Mediterranean, were gradually relegated to history, their ancestral skills overshadowed by technological innovation. Yet, although the sling ceased to be a dominant weapon on the battlefield, its legacy endures. The history of the Balearic Slingers teaches us about the importance of training, dedication, and the ability to transform a simple tool into a deadly weapon. It shows us how a culture can specialize in a niche of warfare, developing such mastery that it influences the course of history. Even though they cease to exist as a distinctive military unit, their story remains a testament to how a simple tool can be turned into a lethal weapon with the right training. The legacy of the Balearic Slingers is not merely that of an archaic weapon, but of people who mastered a skill, perfected it over generations, and left an indelible mark on military history. Their story serves as a reminder that sometimes innovation does not lie in complexity of a weapon, but in the skill and dedication of those who wield it. Their name, Balearic Slingers, remains synonymous with precision, discipline, and the unexpected lethality that can arise from mastery in an apparently simple skill.